You're watching EW Lightbulb, presented by Glade. The new movie Hot Pursuit, which you were both starring in. This is like in the genre of action comedy. It depends a lot on the two leads and your character's relationship on screen. Yeah. Chemistry is something that people like me who know nothing about acting talk a lot about. But what is it actually like trying to create that on screen? I mean, when you first were getting together to work on this movie, what's that process like for both of you?
The way the movie sort of came together was I was a huge fan of Sofia's on Modern Family, and I called her agent and said I'd really love to meet her because I think it'd be kind of a funny pairing between the two of us. Because
you called my agent.
Well, I called your agent. Well,
okay.
He happens to be my husband.
You called him from the other room.
From the other room.
Honey, do you think I should do a movie with Sofia Vergara? And he's like, yeah. Let me see when she's available to sit down. I just thought culturally we're so different, and like to create two characters who in any other world would never have met. Would be really funny. And so we got the script done and she really liked it.
And I loved it and I thought it was perfect. The more time we've had in the set, the better. Like, I think the characters became, because then, we knew each other. And it was like a lot of fun.
Now we know too much.
When I look at both your filmographies, there's characters like Elle Woods or certainly Gloria, where on the surface they seem very carefree, but there's always like a really interesting sort of aspect of their characters. It's kind of rooted, maybe smarter than they initially let on. What's it like sort of like trying to play that kind of role?
Well, that's what I loved about watching Sofia. Is like you can laugh at something, but the complexity with which she plays Gloria, it belies a real sort of intelligence there that is like, she knows who she is in a room. She knows how she wants to make people feel in a room. And that's a very sophisticated sense of comedy. And that's why I knew she'd be awesome playing this very different character in this film.
Well, now, I've been intrigued, Sofia, because obviously you've been working on Modern Family for a long time. Is there any difference between small screen comedy versus big screen comedy, or rapid versus film
yeah, well, of
performance?
course, it's a lot faster in TV. And for example, with Modern Family, we already know the characters so much, the sets, we know them so well. This was, every day you experience something new because you're in a different set, in a complete, different situation. So it's kind of different, but it's fun.
I mean, you know, like as actors, like, do you kind of feel that in the moment when there's kind of something special happening, or while you're filming, are you just kind of like, well, we hope this looks okay?
I think you never know until you see the movie, and then you see it, or the TV show, and then you're like, oh. Either you're totally relieved or completely like
and it's also
distraught.
so different.
It's terrible.
It's also different when you read it in the script than when you're actually on the scene with the things, with the props, with the doors that you come in or out, or where you see it. Everything is different once you like rehearse it and put it together.
Now let's talk accents for a second, if you don't mind. Reese, there was that span of time a few years back when it seemed like every movie you had a radically different accent. From Vanity Fair to Legally Blonde to Walk the Line. Do you kind of gravitate to just finding literally new voices?
Yeah, usually the voice is what starts me off on a character, so I get really into sort of a kind of an idea of how she talks. And this character to me was like sort of a mix of, different performances that I've loved, and also I say it was inspired by a raccoon playing the banjo.
Do you kind of feel like in Hollywood, do they try to kind of like sand off some of the rougher edges? Is that something that as a performer you need to kind of work on, like being yourself, embracing yourself?
But the truth is that acting is not really about being yourself. You have to be other people. So of course, if you have the capacity to fix that and be able to do an English accent, a Latin accent, an Arab accent, why not? I mean, I don't have that that gift. So. And I realized that after taking classes that I was not gonna fix it. So then instead of backing out and saying, this is gonna be too crazy, I said, let's see what happens if I'm just me. And it worked for me. But of course, I have been lucky in many ways, like, finding Modern Family that make me, big enough that, for example, this little girl here would pay attention to me. But it is difficult when you have an accent.
You're both producers of the film, and recently, you've both been doing a lot of work in producing it. As Sofia, there was Killer Women. You had a couple of pretty big films last year, Reese, that were very focused specifically on getting great female roles on screen. Has it gotten easier to get kind of complex, three-dimensional, female-centric movies made?
It actually hasn't been hard to get them made. There's just such a there's a deficit of that kind of, those sort of really interesting dynamic roles for women. So I feel like I almost just identified a white space in the marketplace and then decided to put the effort into, only creating content for that space. And, a lot of studios have been really happy. They've, said like, look, we just don't do that anymore because we just don't have the bandwidth after, 2008, the writer's strike, whatever. And
Sure.
so,
Well, and like there are not enough movies about superheroes yet either. So we definitely need to make a few more of those.
we're not developing any movies about superheroes.
Maybe why not?
I don't know, maybe we should though.
Yeah.
I had a funny idea the other day, but
What was the idea?
I'm not telling you my ideas.
There's no cameras here.
Yeah, right. I mean, creating really endearing comedy characters, it's about tragedy. I mean, ultimately, comedy is about tragedy, and it's about not being understood and how you sort of put on this persona in order to get people to understand you. Not to get too complex.
Yeah, please, I'm too tired.
Watch all of EW Lightbulb, presented by Glade.